Okay, thank you everyone for joining today. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land in which we meet today. I'd also like to pay my respects to the elders, past and present. Thanks everyone for joining our webinar today from Data to Decision. It's great to have you all join. My name is Frank Lucino. I am DiUS's IoT practice lead. I'm just going to try and next. Here we go. For those who don't know who DiUS is a technology consulting company. We've just turned 20 and we're about 120 people across Australia and New Zealand. We focus on, I guess, the three core competencies of digital data and devices to look at building, I guess, intelligent products and making sure that we get the most value out of the data for our customers. And with that, we have and ensure we've got, obviously, experience design and product outcomes as part of that also. But today we've got two other members of, I guess, one of our customers in Swoop Aero and one of our partners from AWS. Just waiting for, the screen to kick across. But let me introduce those two while that happens. Initially we've got Dinesh Abu, who is a solution architect at Amazon Web Services. He helps small and medium business customers drive business outcomes. He's got a master's degree in automation and control systems, so he's pretty well, equipped to sort of talk to us today and go through some of what he's seeing and a couple of examples with that as well. Sorry, there's some technical problems. Here we go. And we also got Andrew Thomas, who's a Chief Product Officer and Technical Co-founder of Swoop Aero. Andrew leads and designs and develops the ongoing management of their proprietary cloud-based software suite. He has extensive experience in strategic software development of critical systems. So thank you to you both in being here today. We do have a Slido questions. Hopefully that will come back up in a second. We can ask some questions today. There's a QR code to do that. So it'd be great if you wanted to scan that and ask away throughout the presentation. If their questions aren't answered throughout, we'll get to them hopefully at the end. So yeah, feel free to ask any questions as you would like to as we go through. With that, I will hand over to Dinesh.
Thanks, Frank. Love it. Cool. So once again, thanks everyone for joining in today. And for this lunch, so we have a fantastic lineup of learning experiences, and none of this would not have been possible. I can see a good list coming up. None of this would not have been possible without you, our customers. As we say in AWS, 90% of what we build in AWS is based on customers' feedback. And this event is timely because we are probably in the midst of the biggest technology revolution since internet. Yes, of course, I'm talking about generative AI. It's a technology which has captured the imagination of people and businesses around the world, democratizing innovation, giving the people and the businesses the ability to create, solve, and invent. And for manufacturing and distribution workloads, which is going to be the focus for today, this potential of generative AI is nothing short of revolutionary. Now, today, we'll explore some examples of how leading manufacturing companies are using generative AI to drive innovation, improve their operations, and elevate their customer experiences. My name is Dinesh Shambhu. I'm a solutions architect here at AWS. I've been with the company for about 2.5 years, specifically work with small and medium businesses with focus on manufacturing and IoT workloads. And today I'm going to show you how you can unlock generative AI as you go back to your business's manufacturing business workloads. Next slide, please. Now, throughout history, innovation has transformed industries. For example, the Industrial Revolution transformed manufacturing with the power of machines. The Internet revolution transformed with the power of communications, media, and commerce. We saw the likes of many internet business-facing companies coming up. And today, generative AI is seen as a similar transformative potential with the being charged with ability to make impacts like the industrial revolution and the internet revolution. So, what exactly is generative AI? It refers to a set of AI systems that has the capability to generate content, be it images, videos, text, etc. Um, and we've already seen glimpses of generative AI in the form of chatbots and image generators. But the true potential, the real opportunity, I should say, lies in enterprise and industrial use cases such as yourselves. And specifically for manufacturing sector, generative AI could help in terms of optimizing production lines to generating product designs to automating technical documentation and enabling intelligent predictive maintenance. And we're going to explore a few of those use cases in the next few minutes. Next slide, please. Now, for decades, generative AI remained an elusive dream confined to research labs and theoretical discussions. But recently, we are starting to see these technologies transition from research to real-world applications across industries. So, what catalyzed this transformation? There are three factors to it. First, it starts with the massive proliferation of data. From internet to sensors, we are generating digital transformation in an unprecedented scale. And this wealth of data provided crucial training ground for large language models and generative models to learn patterns and representations. Second, the availability of scalable compute capacity themselves. The data alone is not enough. We also needed the computational might to be able to train these increasingly complex deep learning algorithms. Enter cloud computing, which provided that space for scalable compute capacity, thereby providing a perfect platform or a playground for these data to be made much more useful. And finally, the inventions in the machine learning space in itself. Recent machine learning inventions around transformer models, diffusion models, and novel neural architectures paved the way for all these three factors to converge. And it was convergence of these three factors that led to a tipping point, catalyzing generative AI applications coming in from research to real world applications, what we are seeing today. Next slide, please. Generative AI is powered by what is called foundation models that are trained on massive amounts of pre-existing data. While these foundation models can be truly useful out of the box, to be truly powerful out of the box, to be truly useful to your organization, they have to be talking to the right data sources, meaning your data. So AWS provides a comprehensive set of data suite of services, I should say, from storing to querying to analyzing and to visualizing data across its entire lifecycle. And your proprietary data combined with these generative AI capabilities, that will be the true differentiator for the use cases or for driving innovation in your organization. Now, so let's explore these generative AI tools and services and what those services available on AWS as we go forward. Next slide, please. At AWS, we categorize the generative AI tools and services in three different layers. I want you to focus on the very bottom layer, which we call as the foundation layer. At the very bottom, or the first, we see the foundation layer, where we provide scalable infrastructure to train these massive foundation models on vast data sets so that it can cost effectively run them in production. And that includes service GPU instances, SageMaker, and other AWS services that provide that compute power and scalability. That's the first layer. Moving on to the middle layer, which is all about providing access to the foundation models in the form of an API, application programmable interface. Now, not all companies will want to train these foundation models from scratch. Companies, customers, majority of the customers that we see, they want to start using these foundation models all through an API. And that's where our Amazon Bedrock service comes into play. It's a serverless managed service, allowing you to easily access foundation models from leading foundation model providers such as Anthropic, Meta, and much more, Cohere, and much more, to be able to access them via API so that you can integrate, so that you can build your generative AI types of use cases. Amazon Bedrock is built with security, privacy, and safety in mind. And with Bedrock, your data never leaves AWS environment and is always encrypted in transit and in rest. Moving on to the top layer, we have the off-the-shelf, ready-made suite of products, namely Amazon Q, allowing you to quickly take advantage of generative AI's power without, you don't have to build deep coding knowledge and much more. So Amazon Q are a suite of products where you can directly use and integrate that with your applications as well, ranging from Q Business to Q Developer to Q in a BI tool such as QuickSight, and also in a contact center operations such as Q in Quick Connect. Now, having understood this mental model of different tools and services that are available in AWS, the two differentiator again is infusing these potential capabilities into your specific workloads that again pointed to your specific challenges. Next slide, please. Now that we have discussed the basics of generative AI and some of the tools and services available in AWS, generative AI tools and services available in AWS, let's see like how the generative AI can be applicable and how manufacturing companies are starting to use generative AI to drive business outcomes for their specific use cases. Next slide, please. But even before we get into generative AI aspect of it, let's understand the common manufacturing workloads that we see in our day-to-day operations. We like to categorize in five different layers, as we can see, starting off with the engineering and design. With engineering, these sort of use cases involve how on AWS, how your teams can explore ideas, can simulate production processes rapidly. You can accelerate time to market while protecting your intellectual property. So it's all about how you can use the AWS infrastructure to facilitate your engineering and design workloads. Next, smart manufacturing. Under smart manufacturing, we help organizations in liberating data from their legacy equipment. We have services that can talk to in various industrial protocols such as OPC UA, Modbus, BACnet, and much more, getting the data, storing, analyzing, and visualizing the data in near real-time dashboards as well. And that facilitates multiple use cases such as asset situation monitoring, energy situational awareness, energy monitoring, condition maintenance, predictive maintenance, and much more. A suite of use cases comes into play under smart manufacturing category. Next off is sustainability, where we help identify areas to minimize waste and rework and optimize your energy usage production, helping you identify and reduce carbon footprint as well. Next, supply chain. Again, we provide that end-to-end services that can help you identify, help you with your traceability sort of use cases. And then finally, with smart products, it's all about how you can delight your end customers in terms of elevating their customer experiences, helping you to unlock new revenue through AI, automation, and IoT. So across all these different use cases, AWS empowers these manufacturers to reinvent how they want to design, build, make, move, and enhance things across the entire manufacturing workload. So this is a common mental framework to understand the different types of use cases that can be powered across the manufacturing workloads. Now that we have understood the typical manufacturing workloads, let's put a Gen AI or generative AI lens onto it and see how generative AI can help facilitate these workloads. Cool. Now, again, excuse me for the wordy slide. Again, when it comes to generative AI, there are a different set of use cases that can empower when it comes to manufacturing, ranging from knowledge management and much more. So let's start off with knowledge management. It's all about how you can enable personalized coaching experiences and build virtual assistants so that you can easily access documentation all via natural language, helping you to troubleshoot a particular equipment or helping you to reduce mean time to repairs and much more. That's all about knowledge management. And that's my personal favorite. I'll tell you why. We've got a demo shortly that typically walks you through this knowledge management use case. And we have seen some customers starting to implement those knowledge management use cases in the form of chatbots, which we'll further explore. Now, moving on to the text generation and summarization aspect. Again, think about those standard operating procedures and manuals. You want to quickly summarize and ask questions in the form of natural language. And that's another use case which you're starting to see. The third one being insights from industrial data sources. In typical cases where you have your equipment connected through a SCADA system, supervisory control and data acquisition, and then it may go through an MES, which is manufacturing execution system, or an historian, and they may end up to AWS or to AWS, or they can come in directly from the underlying equipment through sensors. Irrespective of how they end up in AWS, there will always be needs in order to query those underlying data sources in the form of how quickly you can query those underlying data sources. And with generative AI, you can use natural language to query your underlying data sources and obtain real-time information of a pump or compressor or motor and much more, which we will further explore in the demo. Computer vision, as well as product engineering and design, you'll be able to create new product designs, novel architectures, and much more. Lastly, coding assistant. It can also help you with PLC programming, programmable logic controllers, ladder logics, and much more. And as I can see with coding assistants getting prominent in software applications, it could also envision how generative AI coding assistants can be useful for your PLC programming as well. Cool. Next slide, please. So we have just explored the diverse ways of generative AI, how they can be applied to manufacturing distribution workloads. And that's exactly what Kone, an elevator manufacturing company, did. They faced challenges with unstructured operational data, making troubleshooting difficult. And then their goal was to repair the equipment time, minimize or improve their repair times and thereby apply proactive maintenance so that they could prevent those equipment failures. Kone used deployed generative AI trained on their proprietary resources like manuals, analytics, and failure patterns. And they used Amazon Bedrock to do that. This eventually allowed their technicians to simply use natural language for efficient troubleshooting and diagnostic purposes. This means they used generative AI powered by Amazon Bedrock to improve their mean time to repair and deliver proactive maintenance to customers. And this is a public case study. And if you go online and search Google Amazon Bedrock, that should lead you to this specific case study. And you can dive deep in terms of how they used Amazon Bedrock to be able to come up with that generative AI use case. So with all that said, now that we have seen Kone, let's put that into action. Let's dive deep and put that in terms of how an industrial AI assistant would look like. Now, to set the scene, Operators are the lifeblood of a production process, as you may all know. They work directly with the machinery, making sure everything is set up correctly and running smoothly. For the purposes of this demo, let's take an example of a fictitious cookie factory. Now, I understand it's almost lunchtime. And in terms of a cookie factory, they produce cookies. And this particular production line has it into a snag, meaning some of the cookies that the facility produces are malformed. So we want to identify the reasoning for these malformed cookies and quickly want to get that production line back in business. Now, we've also got our operator, Spencer, who is new to this business and hasn't dealing with complex issues like this before. So we're going to see how we are going to equip Spencer, our operator, with generative AI so that he can quickly identify the reason for that particular snag and help him with sufficient directions and guidance so that he can go back online and help fix and help get the production line back in operation. So let me get started. Slide, please. Cool. So over here we have a 3D representation of a cookie factory with production line using one of the AWS IoT services covering mixing, forming, baking, and packing cookies. An anomaly is being detected, and you can see an industrial AI assistant opens up, giving the operator Spencer with potential root causes and solutions. The industrial AI assistant, and then it teleports based on a clarifying question. The operator is able to navigate to a freezer tunnel. And if we may want to pause this a bit, Frank, for us. Okay, cool, thanks, Frank. So based on a clarifying question, the operator is able to teleport to a freezer tunnel where he thinks that could be the reasoning for that malformed cookies. And once he navigates to that particular freezer tunnel, let's resume the click. And then it can go back and inspect the various equipment data pertaining to that specific freezer. Not only that, Spencer can also go online and ask, can you analyze the last 15 minutes of data for that freezer tunnel? The assistant inspects that, queries the underlying data sources, and figures out, pause please, and figures out that the temperature drops across that particular freezer tunnel is the possible reason for those malformed cookies. And then again, operator asks, okay, fine, if that temperature drops across the freezer tunnel is the reason for that, I need help with defrosting that freezer, and how do I do that? To which the industrial AI assistant responds, stating that, hey, look, here is my standard operating procedure, and here is a link, and I'll get it opened up for you so that you can look at that specific instructions for defrosting the specific freezer. Resume, please. And now Spencer, as you can see, reviews the corresponding section, understands that he needs to defrost the freezer, and he goes back to the equipment, defrost that specific freezer, getting those cookies back into to production, and closes that specific issue. And by closing that issue, it can in turn close the corresponding issue related either in any of the service items desk as well. So in summary, we have seen how Spencer is able to use generative AI to be able to fix a specific issue by using natural language, which is powered by Amazon Bedrock in the background. All right, so we have just seen the transformative potential of generative AI and how they can elevate your efficiency, boost your shop floor productivity, and much more. But you may be thinking, as a manufacturer, how can I harness these capabilities? Well, there are two things. The first one, AWS provides you a comprehensive set of services to power your generative AI initiatives from services like Amazon Bedrock and Amazon Q that we have just discussed. And secondly, the power lies in our AWS partner network. Our partners have built a wealth of industry-specific offerings that seamlessly integrate with your existing manufacturing workloads. And I'm delighted to share DiUS does that and they'll be taking through their offers as we later in the session. Cool. With that, thank you so much for joining in today. And I'll now be handing this over to Andrew Thomas, CPO, uh, Chief Product Officer of Swoop Aero, who will be taking us through the specific use case in much more detail. Thank you.
Cool. Thanks.
Over to you, Andrew.
Oh, good. Thank you. So I'm Andrew Thomas, technical co-founder and chief product officer of Swoop Aero. So before jumping into the world of Gen AI, I'll talk about how we've worked with DiUS. I'll talk a little bit about Swoop. So Frank, if you just jump forward a quick slide there. So Swoop Aero was founded in 2017 to transform the way the world moves by making access to the skies seamless. Now, we've built up a platform, the complete infrastructure for sustainable and scalable drone operations. Now, what we do is integrate drone logistics platform into the first and last mile of the supply chains to transform their strength, agility, and efficiency. Now, we do this with the Kite aircraft. So Frank, just move forward one more. So this is our Kite aircraft. Now, this is our latest generation aircraft that we've rolled out over the last 18 months, 2 years. Now, so far, this aircraft has been operating around the world, flying in 12 countries with 8 different operators so far. And the Kite provides an efficient, long-range, two-way delivery mechanism. So particularly, how we can reach from a logistics perspective, regional and remote locations, and how we connect those up. Now, one non-Gen AI side of things of how we use AWS is they connect up to AWS where we have our remote pilot station. So our pilots actually command and control those aircraft using AWS and connecting down to the aircraft over cellular and SATCOM. Now, some of the locations that we've used this. So one of our big networks is a country-wide network in Malawi. So we operate all across the country of Malawi, where we have hubs at major health facilities across Malawi. And we do two-way delivery out across to the regional medical facilities, really connecting them up. So when I say connecting, this will be usually going in there for vaccine delivery. So sitting there and bring that kind of regular supply and being able to vaccinate the population. But also that two-way nature means we can go and pick up a pathology sample. Someone can go give a blood test at a remote clinic, get that blood test very quickly turned around to the pathology lab and get those results quickly. So very challenging in Malawi, but being able to turn around those results quickly mean really good patient outcomes coming together. Another, I suppose, slightly different use case is one of our platform customers. So these are people that pick up and use the end-to-end technology that we've made, and they operate it in the field. So one of our customers is actually using it in the middle of the North Sea to deliver out and across offshore oil rigs in the middle of the North Sea. So 200-300 kilometers offshore, we've got aircraft flying around through the middle of the North Sea. So just jumping forward one more slide, how this links into the production side of things. So this aircraft is manufactured here in Melbourne, and we ship it from here around the world. So we've got our carbon gets made down in Geelong. We've got a supplier down there pulling together all the carbon structure that comes up here into Melbourne, into our production line. We've got a huge number of PCBs. So we've got a PCB supplier up in Sydney and building that Australian-made manufacturing facility as it comes together. So then jumping forward one more, we've got quite a breadth to our business, from the production side here in Melbourne through to operations in all parts of the world. Now, what this means is we've got a huge amount of data of different types. So usually with data, people kind of think, okay, let's make a dashboard. So yep, we have AWS QuickSight and we make different dashboards that show here's the key statistics that are happening this month. And that's great for the regular reports that people have. But what it was challenging is you have this huge amount of data, everybody knows that you've got it, and they've got really ad hoc and unique questions that, you're not going to sit down and make a dashboard or interface each individual question, but how do you give people access to that? So just to give you a bit of an idea, we've got operational data. So the people on the ground and in the field, they care about, how many vaccines have we delivered to a particular location, right? So being able to look at that and go, okay, show me the trends of deliveries to that medical facility. Or they're looking at, okay, this aircraft might have a bit of a serviceability issue. Let's track what the issues have been over the last couple of months. Then we can look at production data. So linking into today, so our production team will have a whole lot of questions around how they can improve the system or what issues they might be having. So they can do a question of what's the total time that all the processes took to make the last kite aircraft off production line. And then they might look at how did that compare to one 6 months ago? And, look at, specific processes in there. Right? This process takes us a while. Let's look at the last 100 times that process has been done in a production line, who was doing it, and, how much time has that taken? So, jumping into some of those unique questions of how do we deliver that? And then I suppose the third big channel that we've got at Swoop is we are like a product-based company. So we have product type questions such as how much power does the aircraft use to climb? So we, in all these different parts of the world, and aviation people at different altitudes, that changes the performance and how the aircraft behaves in different locations. So we want to be able to easily query that data so we can continually learn and improve the product. So the challenge that we were at was we have all this data there, and all our operational and production users really want to get access to it and know it's there and have the questions. But we've got a small technical team that can't sit there and write all these individual queries and spend every single day writing reports. So that was the challenge that we were sitting at. And, we would sit there and scratch our heads and write lots of different queries and the like. But we saw this move of generative AI coming into the world. And this is, Frank, if you just jump forward one more slide, this is the world of where generative AI came in. So I approached DiUS. So DiUS has been a trusted technical partner that Swoop have worked with for pretty much since day dot of Swoop. We've done a whole lot of different projects. One of them was another AI project that we explored using the aircraft's landing camera to identify people in the landing zone to improve the safety of our platform. But in this case, we went to them with this data problem of, hey, we've got it all there. We've got so many ad hoc questions coming from our users. Can we use the generative AI to solve this problem? So a solution which I'll now jump through to a bit of a demo of that worked through with DiUS to connect up generative AI to our platform so we can have users individually ask questions of our data. So if you just jump forward into the video. Cool. So here's a video. You'll see that this is a web based interface. So our chat AI that I've just jumped in and done a sample video, not live, you get away, did the nice recording last night, but just asked it, how many different countries has the kite aircraft flown in? So this gives us that answer that I gave you at the start of the presentation of the kite has flown in 12 countries so far. But then, you might be sitting there with a commercial or operational type user that really wants to start to dig down and ask different questions of that data. So now, you get the fun of me typing back and forth, but jumping in here is what countries has the aircraft flown in? So give me that list. And when was the first date that each aircraft flew in that country? So this is those general ad hoc type questions that you're not going to make a dashboard for your end user, but it's really handy to have a tool that enables people to quickly query that data. Now, a user could probably go through all the different application screens that we've got and individually look this up one by one, but just doing a database query is so much more flexible and faster for them to get that response time. Cool. And then just jumping through one more slide, and then we go into, I suppose a little bit of the technical side of how this actually comes together. So what we've really focused on through this project has been our data, which is all in an Aurora Postgres instance. So up in the top left there, that's the core database that our platform already uses and that we already do dashboards from QuickSight and tools like that. We already have a whole user permissions model that other applications use. So this is using AWS Cognito, which stores all the user permissions and was that power that we enabled to authenticate users to the chat platform. Up in the top right, we've made this a single page application that is hosted out of S3, which is that application that we saw loaded under the chat AI, where a user can ask a question that will feed through to that query function in the middle, which is a Lambda function that then stores and uses DynamoDB to track the different questions that users are asking, feeds the question through to Amazon Bedrock. Now, this is where within Bedrock, we've actually loaded a whole lot of information about how our data is structured. So it's got the full database schema, but then we also put in a whole lot of hints about how it has to query that data. So one of the things that we had early on, which is in our database, we've got a whole lot of like simulation flights versus normal flights. Now, we didn't want users to ask a question about how many flights have I done in this country, and then for the simulation flights to all come back and count. So those are things that we had to add to that data and to feed into Bedrock to help it answer those questions and come back with correct information. Now, jumping to, I suppose, some of the learnings, like one of the big challenges that we had early on is, we'll just stay on the technical slide, no more slides. So one of the early issues that we had was you'd ask a question, Bedrock would have a go at querying the database, but it doesn't know that data perfectly, and it does make syntax errors like any of us. Nothing's quite perfect. So Bedrock generates the query, it would go to the database, and the result would feed back so that it can actually say, hey, you've had this error, or these are the results you got for that query. And Bedrock can have a few goes at attempting to correct itself before passing back to a user. That was one of the big things that really made it much more valuable for the end user. So just a couple of notes of what's next. So we'll continually teach it. So we've got a little tick box that a user can say, hey, this answered my question, or no, it didn't. So when users are sitting there going, no, it didn't, we record all those chats so we can jump in from a technical team when we've got time to go, okay, what was the user asking and why did it not answer their questions correctly? And then we can provide a little bit more input back to Bedrock to help teach it so that when a user asks that type of question again, it's better positioned to answer them back. Now, the other one we've got is right now, this just connects to a Postgres database. So we use Confluence, where it stores a whole lot of organizational information that'd be really great. So you saw in the demo earlier about cookies of, hey, I want to open up and how do I change my cooling element? I think it was. So having that access to the Confluence would allow a user to say, okay, how do I change a motor on my aircraft? Oh, here is your manual, open up that manual. So we're really keen to start to connect up that type of material into the AI. And then I suppose another hat we've got is developers. So we've got GitLab, which is all our code base across our organization. Now, we're all using AI for coding assistance at the moment. Well, a lot of people are. And that's great for jumping in and making this unique function that you can describe. But it doesn't look at what your organization has already got from a coding perspective. So we're looking at, cool, can we use Bedrock or other methods of AI to connect into that coding base to help us use the code that we've already written to feed in and continually grow? One other area which you've probably seen in this is we've put it's a security layer if you have access or you don't, but we haven't filtered that down to specific users right now. So for example, if I look at, hey, I want to give our operations manager in Malawi just access to the Malawi operation, then that's an area that we haven't really jumped into yet with the Gen AI of how do we put it so that it's asking those questions, got its predefined filters to only view a certain subset of data. But yeah, that's a bit of a breakdown of the journey that we've been on with DiUS. Huge learning model of working with Gen AI and the steps of the journey of how we're going there. But I might hand you back to Frank now to jump in.
Cheers, Andrew, and thank you, Dinesh. Yeah, I think The two examples, and I think where what Dinesh talked about from a tools perspective, and that cookie factory, I guess, example sort of touches on obviously what Andrew was talking about from a Swoop perspective. Yes, it's providing data that you probably wouldn't have a dashboard or report for there all the time, but it's just information you would like to know, and then the evolution of that. So it's always about where to sort of start, which is where we can at DiUS can really help. So some of the time it's more about, is there a problem? How do I actually start to define it? And we've come up with three, I guess, initiatives or marketplace offers that we can support you with. So getting smarter with your data is more of that data activation sprint. So, how's the data there now? What's in the cloud? What are the questions that are being asked? And is it for, do you have any internal data that can be used sort of for these analytics? So there's some offer there that we can support with. The other one is around data-driven personalization. It's really about understanding the data you have and the customers you have. What are the challenges from a customer perspective or data customer perspective? So, is it to do with the retention of those customers or acquiring them or converting them and those sort of things? So it's really more about understanding the data and having the ability to sort of break that down. And our third one really is to do with the Gen AI workshop, where we sort of look at going from POC to production. So the things that both Andrew and Dinesh talked about were, there's obviously some experimentation to make sure there's and some training to make sure the data is correct. And then how do we move that to an operational perspective, actually get people using it and getting information from it? So, what does that look like? What's the problem? And then what is the right LLM to use to do that process properly? And then how does it work in your organization? So there's three, I guess, examples or at least offers that we can share after this webinar that you can sort of explore with this. And we can talk a bit more about that as well. Next slide. So we had a couple of questions we would like people to sort of answer, if you could, and how would you look at rating today's webinar? So you should have some questions popping up now. So overall, how did you rate today's webinar? Then we have number 2, on a scale of 1 to 5, how would you rate the overall effectiveness of the speakers, both Dinesh and Andrew? How impressed were you with the industrial AI assistant demo? And what's the most valuable thing you learned from the webinar that you can apply to your own business? So you can spend a couple of, should I take 30 seconds or so to answer? That'd be great. And while we have some people still on, if we also have Slido questions, so if you go in the chat, there is a link there to Slido. We've got some time. If anyone's got any questions I'd like to ask, I'm more than happy to throw them over to either myself, Dinesh, or Andrew to answer. So I can repost that if that makes sense. But yeah, more than happy to take any questions. All right. We're still going. I might ask a question to Andrew quickly. So how effective has that been for the business now in regards to where you'd come from to what you're now using now for the Gen AI product, and how does it sort of, what are the benefits other than, getting the information? What are some of the benefits that you're seeing by using a tool like that?
So people being able to feel independent. So you'd see so often that business people would jump in and be doing some, hacky manual spreadsheet method where they, flick through 30 different screens in an application to get data. And you'd sit there as a technical person and feel the guilt of, I could get that information with a quick query, but you're not in a position to individually go and respond and answer to those just resource-wise. So this has enabled people to go, okay, jump in and have a go. And our, users across the organization are, jumping in and understanding what we've got a lot more. So then when it does become a conversation with a technical member of the team, it's actually got a really good point of standing of, okay, I'm trying to answer this question, how that comes together. But yeah, feedback has been, good independence across the organization.
Perfect, thank you. And Dinesh, how are you sort of seeing this with, I guess, some of the customers that you're speaking and dealing with in regards to, I guess, not only from a manufacturing perspective, but from an overall perspective of, the benefits they're sort of seeing with Gen AI and sort of collating the data and getting it out into, the people's hands that need to have it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, Frank. So specifically to manufacturing, the first use case that I'm talking about is a chat that I'm seeing with customers is chatbots, ability to integrate, ability to access information all via natural language. You've seen that industry AI assistant demo. We've seen the demo from Andrew. So that's usually the route that customers start with, building a chatbot, getting access to the information as quick as possible in the language that they're most comfortable with. And then apart from manufacturing, if you open up to other industrial sectors, it ranges from document processing, document summarizing, and a lot more use cases fall into play. So I think most customers start with the chatbot use case, and then they gradually build up from there.
Perfect, thank you. And yeah, I think to that point, we've shown two examples of one a cookie factory and obviously Swoop, but you can actually pick up, I guess, the theme there from how can you provide insights and information to either people or customers or employees or customers to help them do their job better or more efficient or target specific issues that arise with the right information. Because sometimes, especially in a manufacturing or a factory perspective, there's always someone that's been there a long time. That's the sort of brains, that's the go-to person. Well, now with something like this, you can actually have documentation and manuals, and then that sort of train the trainer, so that everyone has the same information that they can access, which is probably similar to what Andrew was talking about before about changing motors and stuff. Because rather than having to go to the help desk or whatever it might be, you can actually start training people there on site as well. So being targeted with the errors that are coming up, and exactly knowing what's happening, and then you can move on to the maintenance scenario of how many times these things are happening and how do you then prevent those sort of things. So fantastic, thank you. Yeah, I know we're a little bit early, but yeah, we can sort of wrap that up. I think I want to thank, I guess, the team at DiUS as well as both Andrew and Dinesh for being part of this webinar, and everyone else that sort of supported us through to get this done. But I want to thank you all, and yeah, over the next day or so, we'll get this recording and some other insights out there. But if there's anything you would like to reach out to in regards to some of those offers we have, feel free to reach out, and look forward to hopefully solving some problems, and hopefully you got some great insight out of today's session. So thank you all.